All right, welcome back from our holiday break, and I'd like to call this meeting to order for the first meeting of the Township of Puslinch in 2025. And I'll start with roll call. Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Councillor Goida.
Present.
Councillor Willis.
Present.
Excellent. This will start our moment of reflection. All right, that concludes our moment of reflection. Somebody Fox, you have confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the January 15th, 2025 agenda and addendum that's circulated. And the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent items 6.1.2, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
Okay, we'll move for that, please. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Willis, any questions or comments on that? All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? All right, you have a recommendation for the consent agenda, please.
Yes, the consent agenda items listed for the January 15th, 2025 council meeting be received for information.
We have move for that, please. Councillor Schools, Councillor Goya. Any items to be pulled out? Right. Oh, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding 6.3.
Okay, go ahead.
This discusses the freezing of the conservation fees, and I'm just wondering if staff can comment on the impact of that to the township. Just wondering if there's any financial risks toward the municipality or how that's affecting us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, did you want to receive the remainder and then we can move to 6.3?
Well, I was hoping to just, you could answer that. Sure.
Okay.
We'll receive the remainder. Those all in favor? Okay.
So through Mr. Chair, I believe our Director of Finance provided an additional information that was provided by the Conservation Authority with the council questions, and so perhaps she's able to answer that question.
I'm so sorry. I actually missed the specific question. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the freezing of the conservation fees, how that impacts the municipality.
Okay, I do know that our increase was minimal. I'll just look to see what that exact increase was. One moment, please.
He's looking at that, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking up the number. Sorry about that.
This is, to me, this is a double-edged sword. They mandated them to freeze the fees, which to me, a fee should be if you want to go in an optional use of an area, so you choose to go there and pay the fee to get in, right? So if they can't collect fees off people that are opting to use the facility, then it has to then go back on the levy charge that they charge the municipality. So then the taxpayer will end up paying more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought it was fees in relation to the services the conservation authorities could provide to the municipality. So if we were to request some sort of study or information or something from the municipality, not sure how the fee freezing impacts that.
Yeah. Yeah, is it third party costing to us? Like which
Yeah.
one is it? Yeah, I understand. So
Yeah,
maybe you could follow up later.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sand?
just to let us know.
Yeah, I believe it's less than 4,000 that the fee has increased from last year to the township.
Right, so I guess I'm wondering if the freezing of fees impacts us over and above that cost that we've already paid.
The reason shouldn't keep it the same.
But then, yeah, they might not be able to provide that service with
Thinking
that, so
cost.
then we might get charged something over and above, and I guess I'm just curious. Like,
Mrs. Sand, you can maybe follow up with Counselor Bailey.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Yeah,
Sounds like they're negligible impact, so, but
Yeah.
it's definitely good to keep it on their radar. All right, so we'll get you to move to receive that one, Counselor Bailey.
Yeah,
If you get a
that's
second. Mr. Spillis, all in favor? It's carried. All right. We have a public meeting, January 22nd at 7 PM. Public information meeting held in person at the municipal office, 7404 Wellington Road 34. And by electronic participation through Zoom regarding the following: 2025 proposed township budget, zoning bylaw amendment application D14 BRU 4120 Wellington Road 35. Put that in the calendar. Report from fire, all right, finance, first report is 9.2.1. It's Mr. Sand.
yes. I'm just pulling up the report.
Well, the report's in front of council, so I'll have Ms. White Fox read the recommendation, please.
The report FIN 2025-004 entitled the 2025 capital and operating budget update be received. And that council seek feedback from Placentia Historical Society and the donor of the Killian School Bell regarding the design of the cairn. And that council refer the feedback received from the Placentia Historical Society and donor of the Killian School Bell regarding the design of the cairn to the Heritage Advisory Committee for information.
Good move from that, please, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis. All right, any questions for this report? Mr. Bailey?
I do have a question, I don't know whether to direct it to Courtney or Mary, but, page 7 of the budget report discusses the bylaw officer position. And I think AMO, it was in some correspondence with AMO that, discussed that there's a change in date to implementing the changes to the excess soil regs, extending it by 2 years. So I'm just wondering if that date change and the excess soil reg change impacts our need for the bylaw officer recommendation.
So if you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe it does. So certainly the volume of complaints that we receive around site alteration, I think with where they are at currently, our resources are stretched. But there's also the implementation of AMPS, the new ticketing system, which does require that second officer. And so we're still on track to have that rolled out in 2025.
Right, okay, thanks for that.
Councilor Hurst, anything?
Yeah, just one, and I think this is a really good summary of all the stuff that's been discussed over the course of time leading up to today, so just a compliment for being very diligent. There was one, and I won't get into the hairy details, but it was a budget line item to replace some windows and doors. I think it was $400,000. The province just came out with a retrofit program that goes live the end of January. So my only recommendation is that staff look into that and make sure that the retrofit potentially syncs with government co-funding at the province. You'd hate to go through it and do the windows and doors that need replaced and then not have them 30% covered or something of that nature. So just a heads up to staff to look into it. But other than that, it looks good.
Okay. You don't happen to know the exact name of that program? I'm sure.
I looked it up last night.
If you could just-
I'll send it to Courtney.
That'd be great. Thanks, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Boyle?
I don't really have any questions. I just had one minor suggestion that actually doesn't affect anything for 2025, but rather for 2026. And it's in regard to just reallocating. For 2025, we reallocated some of the money that we would have contributed to our gravel road discretionary reserve to the asset management reserve in order to as a recognition that we need to be adequately funding that asset management reserve. And I noticed that for 2026, as proposed, we've actually reduced what we're going to contribute to the asset management reserve and increased what we're gonna contribute to the, gravel roads discretionary reserve. And I'm just suggesting that we, keep both the same, which would ultimately mean, less going into the, we had originally proposed that there would be 76,000 going into the gravel roads discretionary reserve in 2026, and I'm just recommending that we bring it back to the 50 and increase the asset management reserve to be consistent with what we were planning on doing this year and year after that. So again, it doesn't affect anything for 2025, it's just setting us up for a little bit, what I think would be a better situation in 2026.
What I think I'm hearing is that the increase in funding to the asset management reserve stay there in perpetuity, Mrs. Sand. So what's the number? Is it 26,000?
26,750.
So that 26,750 is a one-time reduction of the gravel road reserve in the sense that this year it goes into the asset management plan and stays there in perpetuity. And for 26, the funding returns to traditional levels, which is the equivalent of 1% or 50K if you want to use that number. You don't bring the money that went to the asset management plan from 2020. I'm screwing up my numbers, 24 to 25 back for 26. It stays there. Otherwise, it doesn't fund the plan for 10 years, 20 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so as long as I know, the spreadsheet was provided to council, this could be updated, in the bylaw that we draft in accordance with the spreadsheet that was provided to council and the council questions and answers. I can have that updated if that's council's direction.
Conversation. So that's the nuts and bolts of it is that, so Councillor Bailey?
Yep, no, I think that's a good suggestion, and then, doing it that way actually ends up in a, better asset management position over the time, and we're within that, the recommended range by staff.
That's yours. Good. See, you're good. Absolutely good. Great catch. So, I understand.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'm simply gonna have the resolution state that council directs staff to reallocate funds from the gravel road improvements reserve to the asset management reserve as outlined in the document provided in the council questions. Is that sufficient, or do you want it to break it down with dollar amounts?
The alternate
Now, to
option.
make sure that that document is 100% correct.
You'll also get another opportunity to look at this before budget is approved as well, but just if we want to be a little more explicit, we can be in the resolution.
It's just, as long as it's understood that this was a one-time reduction in gravel roads funding dedicated to the asset management plan.
Mhm.
And then everything goes back to the way it was, other than, sorry, it doesn't go back to the way it was. That 26,000 stays in the asset management plan because a 1 year contribution does nothing for a 10-year plan. So it needs to stay in there forever to help our graph of
Mhm.
funding, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't, that's why Councilor Goya figured out bringing it back and then going to 76,000 in 2026 is not the intent of council. So as long as you understand that. then we're
Yep.
good.
The document, it's called the alternate option.
Yes.
I don't know if you need to.
Okay. I'll make note of that as outlined in the.
Yeah, no, we tried to find some dollars and cents flowing through it. It's a very solid budget, based on lack of ability to find any weak spots. It would,
It's a good budget. Now, I assume there's gonna be a separate presentation for the public meeting, but one of the important columns on page 89 breaks down the impacts. It's on page 11 of your report. Is $52 on a house assessed at $661,000. $52 for the year. And then we have all of those, improvements to the budget for $52. I would like to see that $52 in reports highlighted. And not highlighted the same as, say, your yearly blended tax block. Make it red, make it purple, pink, don't care. You choose a color. Because that's the message I think that needs to go out to the residents is that all this work we've done, some improvements, some, we've reduced some things. The total impact on our side is $52 for a year. Divide that by 12. Well, okay. Go ahead, Councilor Bennett.
Just as a comparison, I was looking at, Oil Massa, they just approved their budget and the percentage is lower, it's 3.79. But that equates to $56 on a property assessed at 500,000. So the impact, the financial impact, even though the percentage is lower, the financial impact is greater, so it's.
Yeah.
Like, the percentage doesn't necessarily, give a complete picture
Right, because ours has an additional $100,000 of assessment.
for less
Yeah.
dollars.
I also read theirs, to reduce their percentage increase, they increased their projected revenues, which is to me it's a choice of council, which is fine, but if you don't reach those, then it's not accurate, so I would suggest that, so I think we've done a great job, staff, on this budget. And appreciate all the hard work and, answering all the questions from council, it's done a very good job, so. I think that's everybody, right? Any last comments? Councilor Taylor?
So just a question to staff, where in the process will our community groups be notified of their grant application?
Yeah, so typically we notify community groups after budget approval on February 20th. So we try to get the funds dispersed to them in March.
Thank you.
No problem.
We're still intending to show the subsidy to the aggregate industry imposed by the government at some point.
Yes,
Nice.
so I will incorporate that in the PowerPoint presentation for the public. But just so council's aware, I did receive the impact to the township, and it of the $52 that you guys have noted, $3 of that relates to the gravel pit subsidy that the province announced that unfortunately we have no say over. So that's $3 of the $52 and a 0.18% impact on the median typical single family home. But I will
That's
include that in the presentation.
Okay, it's the principle of this concerning, it's still a download of taxes from a viable business to the residential taxpayer, so, okay, thanks for that.
So what, 0.18 reduction, that would have put us on the 4%.
Okay, perfect, anything further? So I don't think I didn't move in a second, right?
You do, yes.
So all in favor, no? It's carried. Uh-oh, it's going quick. Flip some pages. All right, we're not starting until 11:30,
Yeah,
right?
so through Mr. Chair, we could, council reports, bylaws, announcements, and then we do have our closed session.
All right, council reports. The boss says council reports. What do we have for mine? We have Roma come out, we've received confirmation of 2 delegations, M&R with the minister. And it was, oh my gosh, it was MMAH with the ADM.
MTO.
Sorry, MTO, sorry.
Decline.
MMH was declined,
Yes.
so MTO with the ADM.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ms. Whitefox preparing some briefs to submit and we've been chatting. I have my BR&E walk around to engage businesses tomorrow with Yana Burns from the Economic Development Department tomorrow for 3 hours. Ms. Whitefox and I have a meeting on the 27th with our area rep from M&R, Ian Thornton. And that's scheduled for at least a couple hours, isn't it? So they put together an agenda. There's quite a few important topics on there, so we look forward to those conversations to see. Speed enforcement cameras are live in Aberfoyle as of today. Drive slow, set your cruise control. What else do we have on the horizon? That's it. Oh, I will say this. We had our planning meeting at the county and the correspondence from Puss Lynch was on there. We had a very, very long meeting and it was at the very end. And I'm sure you can all appreciate what happens when you have a very long meeting. I spoke to it. I spoke to the importance of the severance date. It was a suggestion by you, Councillor Goyda, the 5-year cool down period from severances to kind of help with speculation and kind of control the growth. I thought it was still a great idea. Anyways, I spoke to it. My intention is to bring it up through the minutes at the next meeting, just to highlight it to the members of the committee again. But it was on the agenda, it was there. And everybody's aware of our position, so I didn't feel it needed. But it was disappointing that we had such a long meeting and a lot of information, people were tired, so would have got received a little more attention if we didn't have such a long meeting, possibly, but it was there, so. Postage by Design is delayed. We were hoping to see it by the end of this month. So we'll see it maybe in February. Oh. Solid Waste Services is experiencing challenges. Waste Management has, they've had equipment failures. They're having some staffing issues. Their staff are running out of hours. As a truck driver, you only committed so many hours to drive. And which resulted in some people's garbage not being picked up on the day that it's supposed to, and they'd be out the next day. I would encourage residents to reach out. I believe there's a portal on their website. You can report missed garbage pickup. They do a great job at trying to accommodate people that were missed. Doss Legal County, he is on it. If I email him, he personally looks after it and make sure it's arranged to have your pickup. It's just been a bit of a perfect storm of mechanical breakdown, staffing that run out of hours, staffing that vacancies, all that stuff that everybody's encountering. So we appreciate people's patience. However, the Solid Waste Services is changing. I think the producers took over the contract, I believe, in July. So we're gonna see some changes. I read on the Guelph today. I'm not sure where I believe Waste Management is starting to pick up recycling in Guelph now, and they have the contract for Guelph and us, so we could see different days. We don't know. We could see the township, the west side picked up when they do the west side of Guelph. You know, all this stuff is still up in the air, so residents are gonna have to be patient and adapt, and we may see new bins. There's a whole lot going on, but so we apologize for some of those service inconsistencies, but we're doing our best at the county.
Question on that, as you know, there's a $10 fee now to get into the dump. Is that going to be relaxed given all these difficulties on your issue?
I don't believe it will be relaxed. I have heard of instances, I maybe shouldn't say this publicly, but people show up and say, hey, my garbage wasn't picked up today on X road, and then, well, we'll let you in for free today, but that's a staff decision in the moment, so they've been very accommodating. But I mean, that can be problematic, right? But the move, and I'm sure you're aware, the move to the $10 is to A, people to use the driveway service, and B, we're trying to encourage sorting so we can expand or extend the lifespan of the dump, because Ontario has very little capacity for landfill, and we have our own, and we're in a very advantageous situation. So that's, I've heard a lot of that.
Sure, we have a lot of.
Yes, it's changed too, so people. Okay. Anything? That's yours.
Just a question, and maybe we don't know this yet. Is there any idea of when we might see some reporting metrics from the speed camera in Aberfoyle provided by the county?
My understanding is there's a report going to the roads committee for this month. Not sure if it'll be enclosed or not. It's also my understanding that the cameras were called live for a week or two, so they were testing them. So I'm not sure. I feel that the test period is going to be the report, just to make sure they're operating. But I'm pretty confident we could get that report. If it's closed, we'll just likely have to go into close as well when they use Madam CEO. So we'll just keep a pulse on that, pulse check on it, but.
Yeah, I'd be interested in along the line of the less on the revenue side and everything that goes along with that, but more along the line of the speeding metrics and how it has potentially curbed excessive speeding through the community. When the timing's right, I would be interested in that.
End of the day, we're not looking to hit people in the pocketbook, we just want them to slow down. So, yeah, I agree with you. I would be fine with proceeding zero monies from, we don't receive any of the money. But if we were receiving money, I'd be fine with not receiving money and people drive slow. Cause that's the goal, with the school and the parents and all that good stuff going on there. It's about getting people to slow down. So, yeah, we'll make sure we get. Anything else from this side of the?
Well, just a question of staff, the submission to the ombudsman with respect to the Highway 6 water issue. Is that coming along?
So through Mr. Chair, we did get a response back from them, and we're in the process of providing them with our documentation, and then they'll do their investigation from there.
So they're taking it on, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Great.
Oh,
Do you have like any anticipated timeline to this, Courtney? Is this like years or months, or it's hard to say?
So through Mr. Chair, the township has been through this process on the receiving end of it, like many municipalities and public organizations. And typically, they're not long drawn out. There can be a longer period where the individual that's doing the investigation has to review the materials. In this case, there's a lot of materials, so I could see it being a little bit just to get a handle on things.
It's good.
It's good. Well, and I'm very happy for that. Very happy. All right, so thank you. We're second to receive my report. Suppose Councilor Hurst, all in favor, carried. Any council member updates? Announcements or bylaws, so I guess we should do bylaws. No, we can't do that because we haven't done the report. Can we? Or it is.
Yes, we can. We didn't include a report, through
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, on this one. You're right. It's just a bylaw. The report was at the previous meeting, and this is sort of bringing it back.
Do you want to just speak to it a little bit or just give her?
So it's the fire protection agreement with the city of Cambridge. So council viewed this last year. The city of Cambridge then had an opportunity to view it as well. And they have also endorsed it and included in their budget. And so we're just looking to formalize that through bylaw.
Want to read the bylaw, please?
Yes. That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2025-001 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into a fire protection agreement with the corporation of the city of Cambridge for the purpose of fire emergency services.
Move that, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Schools, any questions for the fire chief? I was hoping. Put you on the spot. I think you can handle it well. We'll do that to you. All in favor? That's carried. I need to know some motion today. Sorry, I'm skipping around on the spot announcements instead. Community investment, yeah.
So staff are happy to share with council today that in response to a written delegation that was received in 2024, that in partnership with the OPP and the OPP Auxiliary Unit, the township has, we have scheduled a public safety meeting that will be taking place on Wednesday, February 19th. It is an in-person meeting only. It'll be hosted at the Coast Community Center from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. The OPP and the OPP Auxiliary Unit will be there to discuss anti-fraud and as well as ways to safeguard your home. Staff are going to be putting up posters in various locations within the township as well. We're going to be putting this through on our social media and sharing it with those folks that brought the concerns forward to staff.
That's great. Yeah, I've been engaged by a group of people. They're having some alleged break-ins, and so that might be helpful for those folks. Okay. Community events come up. Good.
The only day that was.
That's February, right? So, okay. You don't need a resolution for that, do you? Right. Now, anyone else to motion today? Any new business? No? We don't have anything until,
We can go into closed.
yeah, we can go into close.
Bye.
I'm just hanging. We're gonna go into close. We're done. Was there something? I'll just pause. Was there anything that you were here for?
I was just here for attendance, make sure you all showed up.
Sorry, John.
I had other business here, so I don't know how I'm here, we'll see how you.
Good, well, that makes me feel better.
Good day, it's snowing like crazy again, winter's here.
Are you gonna bring the Bombardier to the family day, or we're probably not allowed to do that anymore?
That field is so nice, you and,
True.
gotta keep it pristine.
No.
Looking good, keep up the good work.
Thanks, John. At least he was here for something else.
Get in.
Stuck it in,
Was checking in on your kids.
holding us accountable.
Okay, sorry.
Righty. That council should go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal and local board employees, and it's in relation to a human resource matter.
Can I move for that, please? Counselor Hurst, Counselor Bailey? All in favor? Carried.
Quick question. Are you guys gonna come back at 11:30 or are you gonna go through all closed and then come?
Ms. Whitefox, you have some recommendations coming out of close?
Yes, the council, move into open session at 11:50 a.m.
Okay, mover, Counselor Bailey, Counselor Hurst, all in favor? Carried. I believe that's all you have, right?
One more,
Sorry.
yes. The council receives a confidential report regarding a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal and local board employees, and it's in relation to a human resource matter, and that staff proceed as directed.
Gonna move for that, please? Counselor Hurst, Counselor Goya, all in favor? Carried. All right, any business out of the arising from the closed session? Counselor Spillis?
Mr. Mayor, I think, given the fact that there's a lot of community interest in this fire master plan proceeding as early as possible, I'd like to suggest that, we pre-approve the budget right now, prior to the big budget approval, so that the fire master plan can get started and, get done earlier than mid-year.
I heard you say pre-approve the budget.
Pre-approve the budget associated with fire master.
Oh, I was like, done. Just kidding. All right, so we have a recommendation that, Councilor Wilson is proposing that we pre-approve the budget component of the fire master plan, so that's moved by Councilor Spillis. The seconder for that, please. Someone second it?
Yeah.
Councilor Goda? Okay. Questions or comments? Good, that's great. You're good with that procedure, Lee? Okay, all right, all in favor? That's carried. I believe that's it. Now we will return to welcome Kyle, Angie.
Kim.
Kim, sorry, Kim. I saw your name on a report. Which item is that? 10.1?
Yeah.
So this should be interesting. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. Anyways. Are you good?
Yes, okay.
Are you gonna share some? I don't think you can put your report up there.
Sure.
but-
I was just, we're just gonna verbally talk to it if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Pleased to be here today to provide this report for you regarding to the Glen Christie proposed application, Glen Christie Quarry's proposed permit to take water application. In front of you are the staff comments as well as Wellington Hydrogeology's technical comments that have been submitted to the Ministry of Environment as of January 10th, along with the Guelph Hermosa Township Hydrogeologist comments as well. The ministry is aware that we were having council today and that there will be revised comments going to the ministry to reflect council's comments. Just to briefly summarize the report. First of all, actually, I will talk about the concurrent application, which is the environmental compliance approval application that closed on the Environmental Registry of Ontario on December 29th for this quarry. We are in repeated correspondence with ministry reviewers to get the technical documents for us to review. We did place a placeholder comment in the ERO prior to its closure, just so that they know that, you know, we've been asking since day one of the posting and have yet to receive the reports to review. Why that's important is part of that is about the discharge of stormwater off the site or water off the site to surface water bodies, but also the applicant, we're not sure, but the applicant may be proposing some groundwater infiltration, which would actually go to, if they are doing that, would actually go to help mitigate some of the risk of what we're talking about. So our team had multiple comments on this quarry application, and council will recall that there is another quarry application that's separate for Lafarge. It's just up the road. So part of this review for Glen Christie was actually also looking at the cumulative impacts in terms of recommended monitoring programs. for looking at both of those quarries together. As council is aware, this quarry is located in multiple municipal wellhead protection areas. These are predominantly, these are the city of Guelph and the city of Cambridge, region Waterloo wellhead protection areas. So those are noted in the report as it applies. There are a series of recommendations and or questions for the ministry. There's some reports, one report in particular, NSRI, that we are still looking for, that we've asked the ministry to provide. And then we have, generally speaking, our comments can be grouped in a couple different themes. Additions to the monitoring and reporting programs and the monitoring program terms and conditions of the permit safe waters. There are a number of comments related to that, including, as I mentioned before, both cumulative impacts. There's a number of thresholds, as council will note as well. There's also then a number of comments related to mitigating the impact on surface water, wetlands, and groundwater. So this is both municipal wells, but also, of course, private wells, which are in close proximity to this quarry. And this does get into some proposed excavation or extraction depths or water level comments as well. And then lastly, there are a series of comments related to low water response conditions as per council direction in the past, as well as the length of the permit. So this is applied for 10 years, as is our general policy, but as it was with Lafarge, we have asked for a 5-year extension on this, especially given the size of this taking and what's going on in the immediate vicinity. And we have formally requested a meeting between ministry reviewers, our staff and team, and I've also actually asked that in partnership with the city of Guelph, Regional Waterloo, and the GRC. So actually all those municipalities and agencies were providing very similar comments along those lines to the ministry. And the ministry has acknowledged acceptance or receipt rather of the comments, and now they'll be reviewing them over the next couple of months. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thanks, Cal. I'm just gonna have Angie maybe give a quick high-level overview. Your reports are fairly similar, and then I'll come back to council as I look for it.
Yeah, you want me to talk or you talk?
You're gonna talk.
I'm gonna talk, okay.
Just-
Great, all right, I'm just gonna pull it up. So I know that. Okay, so I'll just go through the comments that I had. The first was about the mining method. So I didn't see anywhere in this report whether they considered doing this type of mining without dewatering. It's something that's been done for a few other sites in the area. So if they decided to do this without dewatering, it would reduce or eliminate a lot of the impacts to groundwater and surface water. So I think it'd be important for them to at least look at that. Also, as Kyle mentioned, the cumulative impact assessment with Lafarge will be important as both of their models were overlapping when you looked at both of them together. So there is potential for there to be cumulative impacts in between their overlapping model sections. And it would be good for them to do that before approval, if possible, but that'll be up to the ministry. I had some serious concerns about the geology of this quarry. So there's two prominent bedrock aquifers in the area. There's the Guelph Formation, which sits on top. The Gasport Formation is underneath. And usually there are 1 or 2 aquitard layers in between separating them that kind of protect the upper bedrock from the lower bedrock. On this site, their cross sections kind of showed the aquitard in the middle, but then their borehole logs showed that there was no evidence of an aquitard in the middle. So essentially you have the Guelph aquifer and the Gasport aquifer like right up against each other. And their excavation is proposing to go all the way through the Guelph and into the Gasport underneath. So I think there's definitely a concern there, being that the nearby Doe Lime quarry had a problem where 15 years ago or so, they discovered that they had breached the aquitard and gone down into the Gasport, and that caused some serious water quality threats for the city of Guelph. And they're actually doing a huge management program right now to try and mitigate those threats. So my recommendation was to limit the base of this quarry to 5 meters above that contact And they may need to do some more drilling to characterize where that top of that Gasport aquifer is, so they can stay 5 meters above that to hopefully mitigate any potential issues with groundwater takings from municipal wells as well as private wells in the area.
When they drill for those tests, do they seal those drill holes or do they end up being little punctures in between the two different?
Oh,
A little bit of a technical.
That's something we just studied, the multi-aquifer well study we just did was for wells that connect that Guelph aquifer to the Gasport aquifer mainly. So this would be like, the quarry would be like a huge well connecting those two. So a big concern, but yes, when they drill the wells, the ones that they drilled that went through both aquifers, they're sitting as wells right now. In the future, they'll have to fill those in, using Reg 903 to seal them up.
So even a core sample, I mean, I call it a well, but they do a core sample. So if we say go drill 30 cores to find out exactly where there's an aquitar between the two formations, then we're asking them to make 30 punctures between the two. Do they pump concrete in those test things, or what's the management of those? If we're gonna be asking for something that could be a detriment.
Yeah, according to Reg 903, they have to seal them up after with bentonite or bentonite cement grout.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm just. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Oh, the other thing with the staying 5 meters above the gas port, they would have to change their ARA site plans to reflect that as well. Because right now the ARA site plans permit them to go all the way down to 270 meters above sea level. So whatever that number ends up being based on further characterization, that maybe it's 275, maybe it's 278, I don't know. They'd have to change the site plans to match that. I also was looking at the plans and noticed that the wall of this quarry is like right up against the Speed River. And that was a little concerning to me. I know that there's been another site down in Puslinch that there was an overtopping of one of the rivers going into a quarry. I don't know what site it was, but I think it was Mill Creek. And then I was reading further into this report, and there actually was a historic breach of the Speed River going into this quarry. And that's before it was even expanded. So I threw that in there just to make sure that they've had the appropriate people look at the stability of this wall between the quarry and the Speed River. Also, as Kyle mentioned, the NRSI report, that's the ecology report. MTE made reference to this report several times, but we don't have the actual report to review to see how sensitive some of these wetlands are and tributaries. So it would be important to have that reviewed in more detail, like by MTE, as well as it would be good to have the actual report to reference. The dewatering and discharge plan, I think that'll be provided in more detail when we get the ECA documents. But yeah, it would be important to review that in more detail to see what they're proposing and what the impacts might be from that dewatering and discharge plan. They were talking about recharging one of the lakes so that it would help recharge the bedrock aquifer, as well as having an infiltration gallery next to one of the tributaries so that it would kind of mitigate impacts of drying up the wetland and tributaries in that area. But we don't really have any details of like how much water they're gonna pump in and what kind of monitoring plan, what kind of water quality monitoring they're doing and things like that. So just like looking at more details would be good for that aspect. And then my other comments related to the monitoring program, which Kyle already touched on. They were proposing two new monitoring stations southeast of the river, so on the Puslinch side. So it'd be good to have more details on what those monitors are gonna look like. I suggested they do multi-level So they would have, if there's overburden, like one screen in the overburden, one in the Guelph aquifer, and then one down in the gas port. Because they're going so deep, it's important to like look at all the different aquifer layers and monitor those. And private well monitoring, I think most of the wells they're monitoring are in Guelph, on the Guelph Hermosa side. There were a couple, I think, in the Quistland side. I noticed that they were only monitoring 6 of them, even though more than 6 had responded to the survey and said they were interested in monitoring. But they chose the ones to monitor based on how accessible those wells were. So if the well was like buried in a pit and a concern for safety, like accessing this well in a confined space, they didn't monitor those. This is really common in the industry. Like if I'm monitoring a well, I usually only want to monitor a well if it's got a proper casing according to Reg 903. I'm not going to damage it by opening it. I'm not going to create, a water quality threat for the homeowner by opening their well. But I think in that case, they should at least offer to take a water quality sample, because then at least you have water quality to go on. It's really important to have baseline data so that if there's a problem in the future, this homeowner phones in with a well complaint, you at least have your baseline data to compare it to. So that was a recommendation to go back and do baseline sampling of all of the people who want to participate. And then also I recommended quarterly sampling for the first year of dewatering. The threshold values and actions. I noticed there was one comment from council about a notification for the green threshold value. Something I was just talking with Kyle and Kim about. If you're gonna ask for a notification for the green threshold value, you should probably ask for one for yellow as well. Because currently they were proposing a notification for red only. So the green level was set as, this is what we're expecting based on their model. So if they dewater fully, they have these green levels, and that's what they expect to meet at the end of dewatering. And then the yellow level was 1 meter below that, and the red level was 1 meter below that. So the yellow level was meant to be like, if we have a drought year, maybe we'll be a bit lower, and that'll be the yellow line. But then the red line is you're 2 meters below, there's a problem here. So yeah. So if you're gonna ask for notification for green, you should probably add yellow as well to that.
Wasn't there some inconsistency with the green level threshold? The green level had some built-in redundancy, and I agree with your statement. Which report it was in, but it should be aligned with where I think you stated there shouldn't be redundancy built into the green. It should be right.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure exactly how they got that green line. They said it was, they took the seasonal low and then added the model dewatering number. I think it was a bit ambiguous because they didn't really specify what the seasonal low was. So you're kind of guessing what that was. I was looking at the seasonal lows, and a couple years ago they had like a pretty extreme drought. And I think that's the low that they used. So that's already taking into consideration an extreme drought, right?
So
For the
what
green.
type of drought do you have to be at to get to a red? Because that's 6 more meters in reduction. That's incredible. There won't be any water for anyone.
Well, it would also be measuring the drawdown impacts too, right? So it may not just, you wouldn't necessarily hit those thresholds only from a drought. You may hit those thresholds if they've drawn down more water. So, but yes, that was our point though, exactly that they've added a buffer onto the green to take the buffer out, and just be what the data says.
Yeah, and we're sorry. Go ahead.
Is 3 meters or what's the distance between green and yellow? Is it a meter? A meter each state,
Yeah.
each state? Is that a lot? Is that normal? Is that industry?
Seasonally, we usually see 1 to 2 meters in variation.
So you're comfortable with them saying 1 meter from green, meter lower yellow, and another meter, you're fine with that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
That's not to say there won't be impacts at the green level. There could still be impacts. It's hard to say. they're dewatering like a lot, like some of the residential wells, they're expecting to go down like 8 meters or something. So it's hard to say whether that will impact them. Like it might have no impact, but maybe the fracture that they're getting all their water from is up at the top. We don't really know that, so.
Which is why the private monitoring is very important, right? The private well monitoring is very important. Most of those wells are in the Gulf Hermosa side of the line, but there's definitely some listeners as well.
But I'm looking at more. Carry on.
Okay. I also included a recommendation to notify the town, both townships of a red threshold value, but yeah, you added green and then you add yellow as well, because they only had notification to the MECP for a red before, so there was no notification to the townships.
And if I can just step in on that for a second, it is important to note that MECP is the regulator in this, so that notification to MECP is definitely appropriate. But I think from a information perspective, like our townships would definitely like to know, which is what we're saying in the ministry, so. So they'll retain the regulatory control, but we would, just given the interest and the many uses for water in this area, we would love to.
I agree with source protection that we should be asking for a 5-year validity period for the permit rather than the 10 years they requested. The reason for that is that if you do a 5-year renewal period, the ministry will have to look at the report before 5 years is up. Because if you wait till 10 years, even though they're sending in annual reports, there's no guarantee that those are going to get reviewed every year, so. I think that was a good summary of my comments, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. Thank you all for your reports. They were, yeah, very thorough. I just have a few kind of clarification. I don't really have anything to add in comments, but Kyle, you were mentioning the importance of the private well monitoring. So one of the recommendations was expanding to include triggers related to private wells, surface water, ecological monitoring. And I guess my question is, what's the process for implementing triggers on private properties?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Bailey, through the mayor. Referring to more of the well interference protocol then, or?
I have that it's from the comment on 10D.
Yep. Yes, so it would depend on how they end up monitoring those private wells, but our understanding is that some of them, they're proposing to put data loggers in. So when they do put the data loggers in and they do download the data, then they would be having essentially an access agreement with the private well owners. And this goes to what Angie was saying about how there is other private well owners that offer their wells, but they've chosen the ones that are more accessible because they either are going to manually take the sample or put a data logger in. So it would be based on the data that they're coming from, that they're retrieving from the private well, that would then trigger.
Because it's digital, they can kind of set that trigger level then, or how does that work?
Well, it would depend on how MD chooses to do it.
Yeah.
It would be more if you more envision, they would set a trigger level and then when they review it, when they have a qualified person review it, then they would identify.
Okay. And then this sort of ties in, but Angie, you were talking about how not all the private well owners. My question, I think you sort of answered it. I said, why would 5 private well owners not agree to the monitoring? But it wasn't that they didn't agree to it. It's just maybe the access wasn't as good. So my original question was, is there an educational gap? Like, do people need to understand the importance of providing their well to help with the monitoring? But it sounds like that's probably not the case. It's just the accessibility of the wells.
I don't know how many wells were included in the survey. It might have been 20 or so. they said that 11 of those people they reached out to responded and wanted to participate, which is pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done several of these programs before, and sometimes you get like no one wanting to participate, and very occasionally you get a lot of people wanting to participate. So 50% is about average, I would say.
Do you know why they wouldn't want to participate?
Don't want to be involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want people on the property, who knows?
yeah, through the mayor, absolutely. Like we see a range of reasons. So like not speaking specifically about these particular properties because we don't know the details, but yes, they don't want to be involved. They don't want people on their property. They're going away for 6 months and aren't going to be accessible. Yeah, they're worried about what people might find.
Okay.
Like in terms, right, if they have a
Okay.
problem, then they have to address, like, there's lots of different kind of human nature reasons why
Okay.
people choose or don't
That's
choose.
more the reason,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Councilor Bailey, can I add something? I think this will help. So what I think we could focus on is the ones that agreed to participate but were excluded for reasons. If we could get in touch with those
Mhm.
owners and say, it's in your interest to mitigate those risks, whether it be that, get a well company and to weld an extension on to get it above grade and put a cap on it. But then they then use that well to monitor. So I don't know who has that list. But that education component to say, hey, you may need to do something minor, make it eligible, major, we don't know these things.
Mhm.
Is that kind of?
Yeah. I was just kind of curious why everyone wasn't saying, yes, I think this is really important and I would love to have you come in and use my well to get information.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I feel like the last time you were in, you mentioned that there was a study, but is there any data in regards to the Speed River flooding that would drive the separation distance that Angie mentioned between the quarry and the river?
Yeah, through the mayor, GRCA will definitely have some studies and some reports on the flooding. And I would really probably defer more to them on that. So we will be talking to the GRCA about that. So that's something we can take back and at a staff level, ask
Yeah.
the GRCA, what they have. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what they
Okay,
have.
I just wondered if we could reference an existing study or something that has some of that data to show that there was flooding in the past and this is a concern.
Yeah, because you're speaking specifically about flooding at the quarry.
Well, it's right in MTE's report that in 1930 or something, there was a problem where
That long.
the river flooded the quarry. Because it's been active for like over 100 years.
Okay.
We don't know, maybe that's why they built 4 dams on the river, to keep one involved. We don't know that, right? If the flood control enacted by it, but we need to know that, right?
I think that's something that MTE should evaluate.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. My other one was, I think you noted that the quarry is bisected by a rail line. So is there any comments from the rail line company in terms of like rail stability or if rehabilitation is gonna be needed? If all of a sudden there's 2 lakes on either side, is there any point in engaging them?
Yeah, through the mayor, not that I'm aware of, but the Ministry of Environment would again be, as the regulator, the Ministry of Environment would be,
Okay.
or the quarry operator would be responsible for kind of getting that feedback from the rail company. I would suspect that they have been contacted. So the 2 lakes are actually existing
Okay.
right now. And what the proposal is actually to de-water one of the lakes to get at the
I see.
available aggregate.
Right, which
So,
could change the stability, but who knows?
Yeah.
Great. I think that's all my questions. Anyway, thanks again for all your
That's first.
Yeah, good question, Councilor Bailey. I think you nailed a couple of the ones that I was looking for clarity on. So, reports were really robust. I actually, it's like a bad way of saying it, but I enjoyed reading them. So I kind of learned a lot of stuff to them. So, no, it was a good educational experience for me. The first question I had is the recommendation, I think in both of your reports, to scale down the permit to take water after the first 3 or 4 months to basically 2/3 of the initial request. And I guess my ask is this a common recommendation that's enacted in the permitting process? And if it's not, it seemed quite logical to me and okay, so to get you up and going. And then you scale it back, and in theory, that would limit the groundwater impacts after the initial setups. Can you maybe just speak to that?
Certainly, yeah, I'll start. Through the mayor, it is something that you do see in some permits. It's specifically when we sat down and discussed this as a team last week, it's something that we came up with, that was discussed because of the specific circumstances of this quarry. They need to achieve a very high rate to get ahead of the lake level and dewater it. But then, we didn't want that high rate necessarily hanging around through the remaining 4 years and 8 months of the permit. So it is something the ministry can do. Wouldn't necessarily say it's common, but I would suggest that there's precedent.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know the background of that. So
Yeah,
that's appreciative. The other one that occurred to me, and both of you spoke to it to a degree, is the overlapping of the impact. Like, this is a really intensive area. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And when I was going through the reports, it's like, how do you, as best you can, insulate your analysis, but also you got a river coming through, you've got a lot of quarry action. How do you take those assessments and put some degree of validity to them, knowing that there's so many other external factors that are impacting this? And I think it got teased out in the green, yellow, red process, and just it kind of occurred to me, it's like, it's just busy. It's really hard to isolate this. So can you, from your professional perspectives here, can you maybe share some tactics that you think or recommendations that can be incorporated for when this process goes through, that, because you don't want to have a permit issued and then all of a sudden it's like, the echo of this is just astronomical. Right?
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the question, and thank you, the mayor. I'm going to start on the regulatory side and then turn it over to Angie for the technical side when you get into the green and yellow and red in particular. I would just say communication is key, which is why, although it's the last recommendation in our memo, it's actually one of the really key ones to have the Minister of Environment convene what we've been actually asking for a while, which is a working group in the area. Now that initial asks on the working group were related to the municipal wetland protection areas and that side of things. But the idea when that was hatched was always to also talk about Columbus State Water and ecological impacts and things like that. So, because there's a lot of players, you rightly point out, there are a lot of players busy. I like that description of it. It's a busy area. There's a lot of players. There's the 2 quarries. There's also our neighboring municipalities have active municipal wells and plans for more. We have private residents. From a county perspective, there's a lot of economic land in and around that area that also use water. So yeah, communication becomes key, at least when we can at least start that at the government agency level, which is what that request is. So that then we can split off and identify some of the more technical issues. And as we talked about, even just with the flooding and the GRCA and like surface water sampling, like there's different agencies that are involved there. GRCA is involved and province is involved. We have an interest. So yeah, from a regulatory perspective, I would say it's that communication is key. And we certainly hope the Ministry of Environment will oblige us in that. Recognizing that they are the regulator. At the end of the day, the ministry is the regulator. The regulator has the authority to deal with these, but we're asking them to deal with them in a holistic area. The technical side.
I think the cumulative impact assessment that we've recommended would hopefully calm a lot of those concerns with this area being so busy. Because we're asking James Dick to work together with Lafarge, and also they would have to involve the city of Guelph and the region of Waterloo. So it would be a big impact assessment. Yeah.
Facilitated then through the working groups that we're talking about this summer.
So just as a follow-up to that, and based on your prior experience, is this an unreasonable ask?
Yeah, through the mayor, no, I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. I think the ministry might have some challenges, as doing cumulative impact assessment under their current regulatory framework, which is individual permit based. I think we are gonna see some of those challenges identified from our ministry colleagues. I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. We've actually started a smaller scale version of this in Center Wellington, where we have the wellhead protection area quantity already approved. Where we do have numerous ministry branches, technical consultants, GRCA and municipalities. Meeting to talk about permits to take water and talk about municipal water management. And private well management and the whole situation. So I don't think there's a precedent for that. I don't think it's unreasonable. This is a much bigger area though. Yeah.
No, that's helpful. I'm just, my sense is that this. If we were to encounter an issue, then all of a sudden you have everybody put their collective head in their own sandbox type of thing, right? And then nothing gets addressed, or the time to get it addressed gets drawn out, and then the impacts get more severe, and then the adjacent area becomes more and more impacted. So I'll leave that one. That occurred to me. The last question I had was just in regards to the Speed River. Councillor Bailey noted that a little bit. I'm just envisioning, if we do have a breach in the Speed River, the cumulative impacts are gonna be like messy type of thing. And I'm thinking more of the ecological aspects within the Speed River and silting and the impacts on the environment and fish and everything that goes along with that. And I don't know where we get to here, but that's one that I think, I see it like a big yellow flag on that one, just due to the proximity of the operations. So I'm not sure what you can speak to this per se, but any thoughts on mitigation recommendations that could be incorporated after the fact, once the ministry kind of digests all of this?
Yeah, maybe I'll turn the technical side over to Angie through the mayor, but I would probably note that these are like potential impact that we're trying to be proactive here, that we're identifying.
Yeah.
We're certainly not saying it's gonna breach. We don't know that, right? We're just saying that there's the potential there and it should be looked at, and we're identifying it to the regulator, which is the ministry, and then if need be, Ministry of Natural Resources, for them to deal with it. So there's a process in place to deal with that and to get ahead of it, and we're just trying to, from a local knowledge perspective, saying this is something you should be aware of. So I just wanted to make that clear for anyone that's listening, that we're not saying that this is an imminent thing by any means. We're saying it's potential. But from the technical mitigation, it's maybe something to be worked through in the future. I think we're just sort of flagging it right now. So.
It is possible that they've already had an engineer or a geotechnical or surface water engineer look at that wall. It just wasn't really discussed in the MTE report. It was also, there was a cross-section view in the ARA site plans of that wall between the quarry and the Speed River. But again, I don't know if it was looked into in detail at that point. So it's just important to make sure that that's been considered.
That's good. That's it for me. Thank you. It's very robust.
Thank you.
Ms. Reddick?
Yeah, thanks. I would like to reiterate Councillor Bailey and Councillor Hurst's comments. These are both really great reports, comments, very informed. And, I learned a lot. Just one question about you talked about the geology and I'm gonna get this wrong, the aquitard the borehole is not showing this aquitard. And you're concerned, AG, about the water quality that could come from that. And I'm just wondering if, like, the city of Guelph and the region of Waterloo, are they aware of that as well? And have they included similar comments to that? Or is this something we should be sharing with them to address through this working group? I'm just trying to, if we're doing all this analysis and they're doing their analysis, how do we bring that all together to have sort of like a united
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Councilor Coyle, and through the mayor. Yes, the short answer is yes, absolutely. We have been in touch with our counterparts at the region, the city, and the GRCA throughout this review process. They have identified similar comments. All the comments have a slightly different technical flavor, but we've shared our comments. They've shared their comments with each other, and we are definitely aligned on certain themes. And the differences in the model geology versus the actual geology showing the boreholes is definitely one of those themes that have been picked up on by all parties.
Okay, and then just this idea of having this working group, and that's part of the comments. Do you know if that's also been included, that sort of request has been included in their comments as well?
Yes, through the mayor, we asked them to do the same thing.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
I suppose I'd like to share the comments the rest of the council made. These are really great reports, very thorough. Glad to have you folks on our side. Several points. I see this quarry causing a lot of angst. And I'd like to make sure that one of the requests that we have in your covering letter, Kyle, is that the condition of the permit to take water is that the proponent compensate the municipalities for costs incurred to review the PW permit to take water review applications and reports vested in the annual reports, exceedances of the red threshold value, and any associated reports. I think that's very important. I don't think we should be stuck as a municipality incurring all those necessary costs. As I mentioned before, I'm concerned about this starting to be a big problem. So that's why I suggested having the green threshold information be provided to you for information. At least that gives you there's something happening here. And take your point, Angie, that we should include the yellow. So again, I'm going to ask that those two be put in the forwarding letter. Third point I want to make is, Angie, you covered up in your report that the private wells should be held whole. And I'd like to have that statement moved up to your covering letter. In other words, if there's any well interference that the proponent has to undertake any mitigation measures right off the bat, and including deepening the well. We shouldn't, our residents shouldn't have to wait for all kinds of red tape for this. So if there's a problem, get in there, fix it, worry about it after. During the discussion through here, mentioned cumulative impacts, recharge analysis, and a CR report. Ideally, the way I get it is that this should have been done prior to the ECA making their decision on the permit to take water. So my question is, should we be asking you to put in the report that we're concerned that this information was not provided well in advance, so we can make a more robust analysis?
Yeah, through the mayor, we do in our memo, we do ask for the NSRI report, and do also mention that we have not received ECA.
Yeah, but I was thinking, being a little more aggressive by saying this ideally should be provided prior to any permit to take water decisions.
We can certainly add that language along with the other 3 points.
Okay, and reaching impacts, with the discussion that Councilor first had with you. Again, you're being proactive. You're suggesting that this may be a concern. They should look at it. Should we be considering being more robust with our approach and saying it would be appropriate that the proponent consider having mitigation measures in place in case of a breach?
Through the mayor, I would refer to Angie's comments prior that we don't know at this point whether the applicant has actually looked at this, and we just haven't seen the reports. So I think at this point, we're probably it's probably sufficient for our role as a commenting agency to flag it to the regulator and to make sure that they, and then to follow up with them to make sure that They review it. If we're not satisfied with the responses we get, then that would be maybe the next step would be to. And I'm saying this because I'm anticipating that the ministry will oblige us with the meeting and the discussion that we've asked for.
Okay,
If they don't, then we may need to follow up directly if we have those concerns. But
okay, certainly, come back to us again if you're not getting what you want from me.
Okay, thank you. So it's very concerning that they didn't provide that, what was the acronym, NSI or NRI, whatever that was. So I've penned down here, and I don't know if it's possible, but I'd like to give staff the direction that they FOI any reports that are indicated in ERO postings that are not provided. And that means like immediately. You see the ERO posting, it references a report, FOI that sucker right away. That way we might get it before the ERO goes out. Well, they're about 30 days, or they 60 days?
yeah, Mr. Mayor, we likely would not get it within the ERO posting. The ERO posting is 30 to 45 days. Typically, the ministry's FOI process takes 3 to 6 months. So, but we can certainly request to get it, so we have it on file.
I'm more looking this side of staff. Like I know you represent us, but I mean, I can't tell you what to do.
Oh, no, I work for you as well.
Yeah. I just find it very concerning that they're referencing reports and they're not providing them.
Yeah.
So my second component to that is, I think council should give the mayor permission to pen a letter to MNR minister, MECP minister, the premier, MPP Shriner, MPP Ray, and MPP Ted Arnott, and express our significant concerns around an ERO posting that did not provide all the documents. So I know it's adding work, but I just, with this government, sometimes letters from the mayor carries a little bit more, maybe not this mayor, but weight than just a council resolution. So I think a very poignant letter stating there were reports that were provided. So is that possible? And I'll sign it.
We can draft, Mr. Chair, we can certainly draft a letter and we can commence the FOI process at any time that you'd like. I mean, even maybe sharing with the folks that, you know, we've asked, and at this point that we're looking to this alternative.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline to when we can get those? Otherwise, we'll be starting the FOI process. That might sort of help with it.
Yes, yeah, I would agree, and that we would definitely appreciate that support.
If I may, Mayor Sealy, I don't know if the MECP has that NRSI report. Were you able to confirm if they have it? Because it's not a requirement when you apply for a permit to take water. You have to include a Hydro-G report. You don't have to include other reports, so they may not have it.
That's fine. It's that staff can figure out the body of the letter, but recollection, they're not components from MECP that they're not sharing as well. So,
There's still the ECA, which closed.
right? So kind of how you need to share all the information. So that's another, I feel we should oppose the approval of this until those reports and the ECA is shared and can be peer reviewed. That's my position. I'm not supporting the approval until we see that. Once they approve it, then how do you undo that? I still think 5 years is too long. But I like your idea, like they're gonna have to at least see the reports ahead of time, but doesn't mean they're gonna take action, but at most 5 years. I feel that staff should make note of the fact that this pit has been operating since 1904, approximately. And aggregate pits are intended to be interim land use, and we're going on 121 years. So that could be brought up at our delegation of the MNR. It's not an interim land use. I did pen as Guelph and Region Waterloo engaged, but you did mention that. They should have, in my opinion, so from this armchair quarterback position, but this should be like major red flags on their radar. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it is of concern to them for sure. And it's, they have a different process. It's handled at the staff level at their municipalities at this point, but am aware that there's been briefings to their senior management for sure about this issue.
I like the idea of the working group, and even in that letter we pen, if we put a component of that in there, that this is very important, the working group. Is there any legislative component that they can't impact other people's wells?
Yes, so Ontario Water Resources Act does, and which is the authority that they're issuing permit to take water under. Well interference is one of the primary terms and conditions that get put in permit to take water, and the ministry does enforce that. So yes, that is definitely will be terms and conditions of the permit to take water for sure.
So well interference doesn't mean 8 meter drawdown on my well, if it were my well.
Well, that's, I think, to be determined, the specifics, because they've identified that, and it would vary site to site, and depending on whether or not there's an additional 8 meters, just as an example, like whether there's capacity in the well or not.
Fair. I'd like to, and I mentioned it, I kind of interrupted Councillor Bay when she was saying her comments, but somehow I'd like to engage or ask James Dick to engage those 5 or 6 people that they deem their well wasn't safe, or whatever the reasoning may be. Either get James Dick to provide us with the list of reasonings. Maybe there's some programs out there, whether it's well upgrades, to try to get more of these wells monitored, or an ask could be that they upgrade these residential wells to make them accessible so that they can be monitored, because even Angie, you mentioned, at a bare minimum, we need a quality test, or you said quality, right? But it sounds like, an 8 meter drawdown in some of them, I would hate for these wells to be excluded for other reasons, or maybe they're the one that we really need to monitor. We don't know, right? So a list or engagement of those residents to see if there's a way to make those wells accessible so they can be monitored. I think that's all I have with it. It was a great read. I didn't, get an education for sure reading it, but I hope there's a lot of important parts in this. I hope it doesn't get lost, because there are so many key points, right? And I don't know how we've managed that part of it, but.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, ultimately, we are a commenting agency, so we just provide it to the ministry, and they're ultimately the regulator. If I may, I would like to clarify or ask clarification of 1 or 2 of your points.
Sure.
We will take council direction on this. Is it council direction for us to formally oppose the approval of this application?
Well, that's kind of where I'm landing, because of so many concerns, plus this, I wrote down secret report.
Right. If I may, I'm not sure it's a secret report. It's more of just a bureaucratic over, like, to Andy's point, they may not have actually received it, and it may just be
like secret report. But until we have all the information, how do you support it? So, I mean, again, we're just commenting, so I don't know what council's thoughts are on, we're not supporting it anyways, I guess we're supporting it with all that laundry list of conditions. I would rather, I feel I could take the position that I would not support it until all the reports are released, the ECA is disclosed, both reviewed, and a recommendation from staff. That's where I
Yeah, what is the impact in saying we agree, but we want these things done, or we don't agree until these things are done? What's the impact to
Thank you,
that?
Councilor. Really, through the mayor, it probably does carry a bit more impact if you say we don't agree. If you're gonna do it anyway, here's the things we want done, but we don't agree until all these things are done. It probably does carry a bit more impact.
Buy any more time to then get this other report? We don't.
Yeah, so ultimately, once the ERO posting closes, that's sort of the legislative timelines. The ministry do have service standards to turn these things around, but when they are complex, almost everybody that's going into them knows that this could be a lengthy process. So, I think we're okay in that sense. That I'll be very surprised if the ministry turns the approval of this around very quickly. I think this may take them some time. I think from a staff perspective, we're hesitant to sort of initiate like saying that we're opposed, but we are certainly happy to take direction from council. If council's wish is that we want to say that we're opposed to the application until these things are addressed, then we can absolutely reword the comments to address that.
Are there any legal impacts down the road? You choose to say yea or nay at this point in time?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, I know with other applications, that objection during the period does have some weight. If it were to, end up at the tribunal, or if there was that sort of thing. Now with the permit to take water, I don't know what the appeal rates look like under that legislation and any of these issues.
Yeah, thank you, Madam CEO, through the mayor. It certainly is appealable to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. I would have to go and refresh my memory on exactly who has the right to appeal, but I believe off the top of my head that municipality would have the right to appeal, but I can confirm that after the meeting.
And then I don't know, about making this big decision on a report that I don't even know what it's gonna give us or what's in it, or what is the nature of this report that we don't know about.
Oh, through the mayor, so there's actually two items we're talking about in terms of things that we haven't received. The NSRI report is the National Heritage Report, and that's directly related, to National Heritage, so the ecological consultant.
Yeah.
And that's related to the permit to take water. The other one that's maybe a bit more unusual, I'll say, is that the environmental compliance approval posting came and went. Despite repeated attempts by Kim and discussions with ministry staff, we didn't receive any technical supporting documents for that. It's a different, it's the same ministry environment, it's a different branch, it's two different groups. There's some different legislative requirements. Permits to take water, they have an actual regulation requiring them to share it with municipalities.
This is in regards to the stormwater management.
And the groundwater infiltration, that is correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's a bit more unusual. I don't see that very often where they just don't give it to us at all.
That's a bigger concern, not knowing that.
Yeah, we have what's posted publicly on the ERO. We don't have the technical supporting documents. At this point.
I'm inclined to agree that maybe we say no until, some of this information is provided.
The other one says an incomplete application.
Yeah,
Yeah, through the mayor, they are two separate applications, which is why technically the ministry is proceeding with permit to take water application, but.
they're very related and can be
Very
impacted, so.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the mayor's thoughts here. To me, it's very much this incomplete or based on the information provided here are the comments that can be submitted, but, and then to the narrative that had been shared around mystery report or whatever.
Secret.
Top secret.
Kids ask me stuff all the time, I'm like, secret.
I'm supportive. Okay. Mr. Gwynn?
Yeah, I'm in support. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not the ones who get to make the final decision, so whether we object or whether we don't object, the ministry's gonna do what the ministry's gonna do. So if the objection adds a little bit more weight to what we're commenting on, that doesn't mean they're gonna just say no, but maybe it gives them some more incentive to look into these things. I don't see any disadvantage to do.
I would support objecting, this, BCA. I also suggest, we put in there things like, cumulative impacts. Talk about the big charge, the NSAR one report. Any other reports you folks think you need,
Through the mayor, those are the main outstanding ones, is the NSRI, and then the ones related to the ECA.
Unless there was something about that berm, the geotechnical or.
Thank you.
Or surface water
breaching
engineering
impact,
report.
yeah,
Thank you.
potential
Maybe.
breaching.
That's it.
Potential breaching.
And honestly, I feel if you're questioned, they try to paint it as, oh, they're just opposing to oppose. I feel that, there wasn't all the documents to be reviewed. Yes. We need them all, and it may counteract all of our positions, and then it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not proper.
At least on the public record that state our objections, and something happens, we can say we did it. their
And I'm-
diligence.
And I'm curious, I'd like to hear back, even just personal or through email, our appeal rights. Because this
Yeah.
well interference, I'm curious.
Yes, well, I can confirm that. And if we need to, we can confirm it with the solicitor as well, but we. So,
It's a big drawdown, but if their well is 100 meters deep and it's gonna lower it 8, and
Yeah.
there's still lots of water, well, there's not an issue, but if their well is 10 meters deep.
and drops, yes, it's a big, it's very site specific, yes.
Yeah, so I still, I hope and it, I hope we can somehow find a way to engage those homeowners that they excluded. So that we can get some more monitoring there. That's very important. And it's just the unknowns. So what do you have, Commissioner?
So please let me know if I've missed anything. So I have it that we're gonna receive, the reports. And that council submit the Wellington Source Water and Wellington Hydrology comments to the ministry in respect to the stormwater management and the permit to take water application as the township's initial comments. And the council objects to both applications until such time that the NRSI report has been provided to the township and the EDCA application is available, as well as additional information on cumulative impacts and potential breaching impacts, and that the township has the appropriate time to review and provide comments to the ministry.
Recharge.
Recharge? I thought you were saying timeout, so I was like getting ready to stop. Okay, sorry,
Nervous.
potential breaching impacts and.
Recharge analysis. And associated details. The concern is when they're recharging, they're gonna dump the back of the aquifer. We're gonna worry about contaminated aquifer because of the recharging into the property.
You can help too. There's a.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would suggest for the environmental compliance approval, it's not just, it's the application and supporting documentation.
Okay,
That's very critical.
We haven't seen anything.
We haven't seen anything, yeah, so, which is, I will say, is very unusual. And maybe the Christmas holidays played a role in that, but it's been almost 2 months. So,
The points I raised, would you cover them up or do you need a motion? This is to cover all costs associated with reviewing all the documentation.
I have the cost in this resolution, but
And the triggering levels,
I don't have the triggering levels.
green and yellow.
Okay, so through Mr. Chair, I did say that in addition to the comments provided that the township requests that it receive notifications of any well interference or exceedances of green, yellow, in addition to the red threshold value as noted. Does that cover off?
You're talking about the costs associated with it.
And I have the
There's
cost.
these triggers.
Yeah, all the costs associated with reviewing the permit to take water.
Yes, I have that as well.
And then, upfront that, if there's any well interference, that they take prompt action to mitigate, including any necessary, re-drilling of the well.
through the mayor, we're happy to modify the comments if that's more helpful, or we're happy just for it to be as part of the resolution, so whatever's the. I did provide some suggested wording on the cost recovery in the answers to council, that may help in the resolution. If that's the way.
The council prefers.
I'm using whatever works.
It's all
best.
understood. We just, what you're trying to get at is we want third-party cost recovery
Absolutely.
for
Yeah.
All the stuff, this is gonna be a long and drawn out, process when they start excavating, there'll be all kinds of issues arising, we don't wanna be stuck in with these costs.
Yeah.
I think that should be in our resolution. Because your comments are also on behalf of Bell Formosa.
They are, they are, yes, that's correct.
Unless they specified that.
So Courtney, the wording I can suggest is requested that condition of permit to take water require the proponent to compensate municipalities for costs incurred to review the permit to take water renewal applications and reports referenced in the annual reports and exceedances of the red threshold value and any associated reports and memorandum. So I can give you that.
I think, is that, through Mr. Chair, is that similar to what,
Yeah.
yes, I have that copied
And
into it.
through the mayor, given the discussion, I would add green, yellow to the red threshold.
Yes, okay.
So when I wrote the answer yesterday, we were just talking about the red.
Okay, so through Mr. Chair, I won't add that addition of the exceedances for green and yellow because Kyle's indicated he's gonna update the report.
Well, no, I would suggest if we're adding it to the resolution, I would add it to the
Okay,
resolution.
gotcha.
Yes, yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah, through the mayor, I think the resolution would probably be the cleanest way to address those changes.
Well, experience.
It's a good question. Has Gold Farm also provided their comments yet, or are we the first ones?
Yeah,
this
through
process?
the mayor, thank you for the comment. There's a slightly different process there, so it's staff level and consultant level comments. So our source water memo plus then the Guelph Coastal hydrogeology comments were not submitted as part of your agenda package, but were submitted to the ministry. Yes.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, so that's the direction we received from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The around the well interference, is it simply that we request that the applicant be required as a condition of the permit to take water to take immediate action when well interference occurs, or what are we looking at?
Immediate action, including, drilling, rebuilding the well, if necessary. In other words, immediate action, we have a pumper truck there with, potable water or whatever it is.
Should I be able to read it? Okay. All right, so again, we are recognizing in the first sentence that these are our initial comments. And the council objects to both applications until such time that the NRSI report has been provided and the ECA application and supporting documentation is available, as well as additional information on cumulative impacts, potential breaching impacts, recharge analysis and associated details, and that the township has the appropriate time to review and provide comments to the ministry. And that the township respectfully requests the opportunity to submit further comments once it receives the requested information. And that in addition to the comments provided, that the township requests that it receive notifications of any well interference or exceedances of green, yellow, in addition to the red threshold values as noted in the comments. And that council requests that the applicant be required as a condition of the permit to take water to take immediate action, including redrilling of wells when well interference occurs. And that council directs staff to request the applicant as a condition of the permit to take water, to require the proponent to compensate the municipalities for costs incurred to review the permit to take water renewal applications, annual reports, and reports referenced in the annual reports, and exceedances of red threshold values and associated reports or memorandums.
So any of the aggregate sites where we are able to recover third-party costs, is it worded the way that last paragraph is worded? To me, it just sounds, like when I first hear you read it, it sounds like, oh, we're only gonna get reimbursed for third-party costs if we hit the green, red, or yellow. But I don't want, and I know that's the intent, that gives to all third-party costs. I'm just, is it worded the same as when we get that for aggregate sites, they have to reimburse us?
So we don't, I wouldn't necessarily compare it only because some of those are historical in nature with the ARA reviews, but it does say and exceedances of red thresholds, so it's sort of
Oh,
making
you're
it
comfortable?
distinct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just
Yeah.
making sure. I want to make sure that they're not gonna say, oh, only if we hit this threshold.
Yeah.
No, it's basically every report, review, you're aiming to have it. Okay.
That would be under.
Yep. Do you feel there's anything you've heard us talk about that we didn't capture in that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would ask, but just clarification about the time. Because you did speak in your remarks about 2 or 3 year versus the 5 years, so I would just.
You guys are saying 5, I'm good with 5. I think we'll be lucky to get 5.
Okay.
Because typically they do 10, so typically it should be lower though. So I'm fine with 5, even 5 at all.
Then no, I think this covers what we've discussed.
Okay, Angie, anything that you've heard us discuss we didn't capture in that? Or you'd like to see added?
No, nothing to add.
All right, what do you think, Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, good.
Can I get a mover for that, please? Mr. Hurst, Councilor Slows. Councilor Jenkins. All fair? That's carried. All right, good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, great work.
Thank you very much.
Great resolution.
Thank you.
Done. Is, notice of motion, I don't believe I did new business, is there any new business? The line to it. I don't believe you're correct. Any new business? No? Confirmatory bylaw?
That the following ballot be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2025-002, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Whistler at its meeting held on the 15th day of January 2025.
Okay, move that, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey, all in favor? Carried. Bring adjournment, right?
Yes, council hereby adjourns at 12:59 p.m.
Mover please, Councilor Spills, Councilor Guida, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone.
59.
See you all next week.